Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Education for Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. I would like to start out by reminding everyone that this meeting will be live streamed as per Policy 7. Regular and special meetings of the board may be streamed live, archived, and accessed online. The board reserves at its sole discretion via motion at any meeting the right to not stream live or archive a meeting or a portion of a meeting. Further, the board reserves the right to edit any recorded portion of a meeting. I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Langley Board of Education at 7:00 p.m. I would like to first acknowledge that the Langley School District is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Matsqui, Kwantlen, Katzie, and Semiahmoo First Nations. We gather here tonight in an understanding of the importance of Hiyayistul Skekiyais working together and not Samat, let Samat, uniting ourselves with one mind, one heart, to ensure that we support and inspire all learners to reach their full potential. I'd like to start by recognizing those in attendance this evening, starting with our staff. On my right, Superintendent Mal Gill. On my left, Secretary Treasurer Brian Isley. We have Deputy Superintendent Woody Bradford, Assistant Superintendent Lisa Lansbury, Assistant Superintendent Marcello Moino, Assistant Secretary Treasurer Shind Chand, Communications Manager Joanne Abshire, Debbie Jones, Executive Assistant, Barbara Bryan, Executive Assistant, Paul Baboa, Technical Support Specialist 3, Vincent Montefrio, Technical Support Specialist 3, from QP 1260, President Taylor Hollabaugh and Vice President Jesse Cowger, LPVPA Vice President Paul Traddle, and LTA Vice President Nancy Peterson. I'd like to also introduce the Board of Education. To my far left, Trustee Fox. Beside Trustee Fox, Trustee Ward, Trustee Rye. On my far right, Trustee Wilson, and Vice Chair Dickinson, and myself, Candy Ashdown. Right, so I would like to now move on to report from in camera, and I'm going to pass this over to Vice Chair Dickinson.
From in camera today, we had discussions around policy and property. Oh, and personnel, sorry, personnel and property, sorry.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dickinson. Right, next on our agenda, we have that the Board of Education adopts the consent agenda items as provided. Do I have a mover, please, for the motion? Moved by Trustee Fox, seconded by Trustee Rye. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Next, we have consideration of the agenda. First of all, I just want to make a note that we had unfortunately new business was forgotten, not intentionally, but it was forgotten. So we've added that to, we'll move down trustee comments and question period to 9 and 10, and we'll put new business as number 8. So just want to ask if we can have a motion to, and sorry, Trustee Fox.
Yeah, motion.
Okay, all right, so under new business, we'll add a motion by Trustee Fox. So do I have a motion, please, to accept the amended agenda as presented? Moved by Vice Chair Dickinson, seconded by Trustee Ward. And any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please. Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Moving along to superintendent's reports. And item 6.1, Langley Secondary Family of Schools boundary change process. And I will pass this over to Superintendent Gill.
Thank you, Chair. Over the last few months, Assistant Superintendent Lansbury has spent a number of her hours consulting, working with the Langley family of schools. We have currently concerns around space in a couple of the schools, and it became apparent that there was a need to look at the boundaries and look to see if there needed to be some adjustments. So tonight is the culmination of the work that she's done, and she's here to provide us with the final work.
Thank you, Superintendent Gill. Yes, I'm here this evening to share with you the work that's been done over the past few months in response to our awareness of the increasing enrollment in the Langley secondary schools, especially around the feeder schools region. If you looked at the table on the right, the elementary feeder schools are listed there, along with HD Stafford Middle and Langley Secondary. And you will see that Nickel-Meckle in particular has had an increased enrollment, and we are working to address that issue and concern. In addition, we are always wanting to welcome families into our community and to create compassionate and inclusive social and academic learning communities in every single one of our Langley schools. And we really want to make this a focus, so we're working to do this in a really compassionate way so that all of our families new to the community and already in the community can feel welcome. This shows the Nickel-Meckle division or classroom increase over the past few years, starting with 16 divisions or classrooms in 2020 and currently at 21 divisions in 2023. Even with the potential catchment change, we are looking at possible further increase for September 2024. So at the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting that took place on November 14th, 2023, the following was shared. The process for potentially changing the catchment boundaries in the elementary schools in the LSS region, the feedback that came to us from PAC meetings came to us through the feedback sd35.bc.bca website, as well as meetings at the school and district level. Also shared was the plan to collect further feedback from parents at the individual family level, because we felt that it was important to find out more about why the families wanted to stay or potentially go to their new catchments, and really listen to their rationale and story so that we can make best informed decisions. Also shared was the potential plan for consideration of placements of families for the 2024 to 2025 school year, which I will share later in this presentation. This was in more detail the process that we have gone through since October 11th in this process. So starting with a meeting with the Langley Secondary Schools elementary principals on October 11th, and then going to all the feeder schools, the elementary schools, during the month of October and November to talk with the PAC, listen to their questions and concerns, and compile that data for next steps. All information that we shared with PACs was also shared via a PowerPoint presentation that was recorded with the voiceovers for translation, because we felt it really important that all of our families understood what was happening in the schools potentially, and really wanted to provide them with an opportunity to give feedback. October 30th and ongoing, we had a number of meetings at the school and district level to share the process and receive ongoing feedback from district staff and school staff. Also ongoing was the continued compilation and review of the PAC meeting feedback and the feedback that came to us via the website. Also ongoing were conversations, many conversations with families, principals, and district staff regarding individual student needs and capabilities for attending new catchments. And then it was deemed necessary. We wanted to find out more information from individual families. So November 15th to December 1st, we sent out a survey or a form to individual families to collect more information about their personal circumstances that would enable them to attend a new catchment or that may present a barrier for them. From the feedback that came to us, either the website or the PAC meetings, some emerging themes existed. And also when we sent out the form and received information via the individual forms, these themes were reinforced. So it's a shared understanding of the rationale. We can see the development that's happening in the area, and knowing that something needs to be done in order to find spaces in schools for these children. There were concerns about the impact on the school environment due to either more or fewer students. When you have a change in enrollment, it's going to create a different environment in the school. There were concerns about the impact on student education, health, and wellness. Families shared that they were really pleased with the support and the learning that was happening in the school, and they didn't want that to change. There were concerns about how space may be utilized in schools if an increase of enrollment was to occur. And there was some concern about how they would get to school. Some would have to travel farther or in a different route in order to get to their school in their new catchment. And some don't have personal transportation to do so. And some were concerned about disruption to personal routines. Maybe they have a childcare, they have their child attend in the morning and then they walk to school. And so all of these were heard when we had these discussions with families. And then there were wonders about how this would impact staffing, especially where the schools where the division increase would occur, to ensure that there was going to be adequate amount of staff in the schools for the students. And then questions about future development and the district being able to make best decisions with the information that was provided and the projections moving forward. So again, it's really important that we acknowledge that there are individual stories behind every single one of these children and families that would be impacted by these catchment changes. And we felt as a district that it was important for us to hear more about the stories. So we did send out that feedback form. The feedback form was also presented in paper copy for parents to come and pick up, and then their answers were entered digitally by the school staff into the feedback form so that we can collate it. And that provided a way for there as many families as possible to be able to participate. Also part of the process was the Swiss workers and the ELL staff providing support to the families who needed extra explanation, so they thoroughly understand the form that they were reading and the information that they were getting from the district and be able to provide an informed decision back. Responses were received from the schools you see there, Douglas Park, Simons on the Simons side, not the UConnect side, Blacklock Fine Arts, James Hill, and Nickel. And the survey did not apply to families attending Uplands. If any students moving forward are relocated to Uplands, we will be continuing to ask about their preference for next year. Again, this is why we did this. We really believe that it's important to hear every single story and understand what parents and families are able to do to support their children in a movement of the school. And so that's why we took the extra step to ask those questions and listen. We did make it very clear that by stating the preference that they were not guaranteed a spot in a preferred school. However, their feedback was used to inform the next steps in our plan. And I'll share some of that data with you tonight. And you'll be able to see that we use the information to consider next steps. So this is the feedback survey, the selections below that were provided to the families so that they could choose. So the first question was, I prefer that my child or children stay at their catchment school for the 2024-2025 school year. And then they would indicate the school name and explain why this is their preference, which many families took advantage of doing. I prefer that my children move to the new proposed school catchment, again, to indicate the school name and explain why. I would like to request a cross-boundary placement for my children to attend a different school in Langley. We wanted to ensure that parents knew that there were opportunities to move at a time where increased enrollment is putting pressures on certain schools, and just wanted to offer that as an option for families. My children are at a school that is not their catchment school, and I wish my children to return. So that would be families who were at Nickel in the fall and perhaps went to Nickel in the fall to enroll, and there was no space there, so they were relocated to James Hill, for an example. And then finally, my children are at a school that is not their catchment school, and I wish my children stay at that school. And I'll share the results of these questions in a moment. So again, we really wanted to remove the barriers for families to be able to answer the survey. And we feel that this was a really strong response and are pleased with the number of families who were able to respond. There was a lot of work done at the school level to ensure this happened. We're very grateful because we felt that this was an important step. So you can see that Blacklock, James Hill and Simons, their numbers were lower because not as many families were relocated to those schools, and they had 100% response. At Douglas Park, we had 33 out of 35 or 94% families respond, and at Nickel-Meckle, 103 out of 112, so 92% of families responded. Across all of 5 schools, the first question, which was wanting to stay at their catchment school, which really speaks to the connection that parents and families and children have within their school, was 77%. The percent that were preferring that their children move to the new proposed catchment is 3.25%. Some of them did request a cross-boundary placement, just at 2%, and some requested that they return 3.25%, and 14.5% said that they were relocated and that they prefer to stay, which actually speaks to when they have the opportunity to get really settled in a school community, that they're less likely to want to return back to their catchment school. It's really about community connections, the transitions that children are going to be making from grade to grade is really important and part of our considerations for next steps as well. So working on creating the catchments prior to the first presentation in October, we've made some significant considerations. We considered the current Langley students who live in the catchments that will be affected by the boundary change, the current Langley students who attend the schools within the affected catchments already, preschool age children residing in the catchment areas, the local knowledge of where the housing is being built, and of course the geographical guides, the major roads and natural boundaries, minor roads, safe walk routes, transportation choice programs, families of schools, of course, local opinions, which we were working to gather, and any other unique issues that may be relevant. On the left here, you see the current catchments, and on the right, you see the proposed catchments. The current catchment area on the left is in the dark blue for Nickel-Meckle. And you can see that is the area that is decreasing in size, and you'll see the decrease represented on the right. You'll see Douglas Park increasing in size, Blacklock slightly increasing in size, and Simons increasing in size. So again, Douglas Park has some families who would move to the Blacklock area and would also be receiving some children and families from the Nickel-Meckle school. Blacklock would be receiving some students from the Douglas Park area and also a little bit from the Nickel-Meckle. As already shared, Nickel-Meckle would be having some students attend Simons, Douglas Park, or Blacklock, depending on the location. And Simons would be receiving students from the Nickel-Meckle area. Again, Uplands and James Hills schools catchments would not change within this proposal. And we felt it, again, really important for us to attend to the individual family circumstances. And we have already started that process by receiving the feedback, and will of course continue this process moving forward should this plan continue. So this is the recommendations that will help us be attentive to individual family circumstances in the catchment changes. So the new 2024 to 2025 kindergarten students without grade 1 to 5 siblings would attend in the revised catchments. So their kindergarten registration period will be beginning in January, and they would be registering as per these new catchments. Also, as we know, we are receiving grade 1 to 5 student registrations for 2024 to 2025, and they would also attend in their revised catchments. The 2024-2025 in-school grade 1 to 5 students, so the students who are already in the current schools, would be offered a choice, which they already have been, with the rationale for staying if needed. So again, it's important to reinforce that the preference was asked, but it's not guaranteed. And we're still going through that request review, and we'll notify the parents. Same 2024 to 2025 in-school grade 1 to 5 students without kindergarten entry siblings offer the choice with rationale for staying needed, with the request being reviewed. Their placement not guaranteed, which was already communicated. Students currently in other schools, again, offer choice with rationale for returning to catchment school needed, request reviewed. And new catchment cross boundaries offered to catchments in schools other than Douglas Park and Nickel-Meckle reviewed, meaning that we wouldn't be accepting any new cross boundary requests to Douglas Park and Nickel-Meckle if they lived outside of the Douglas Park and Nickel-Meckle catchments. So next steps, after reviewing the feedback, including the individual family feedback, boundaries should continue as planned with additional provisions to determine placements of families. Placements will be dependent on criteria that is student-centric and helps ensure equity and support for families, meaning that some students may have more difficulty in the transition. Some students may have extra support. Some students, for a myriad of reasons, it's not the right time for that student to move. And so those are the student-centric decisions that we consider moving forward to ensure that all families and all supports are considered. A continued effort will be made to consider space in schools for incoming families while serving the families who currently are in our schools. So all of our families in our community are important to us, no matter if they've just moved here today or if they've been here for a number of years. We care about all of them and want to ensure that they have a safe place in schools. And so we want to ensure that they feel that and that they feel heard and that we are finding a safe place for them so that they can have a positive experience. And so this is our priority. The district will continue to work with families in a supportive way during the transition, no matter how they are impacted. So the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approves the catchment boundaries for the Langley Secondary Family of Schools elementary schools be adjusted effective September 2024 as presented. I'll take questions as you need.
I just want to say thank you for such an incredible amount of work. It's one of those, like listening to you speak and listening to the process and everything that you and your team went through to make the community aware. It makes me really proud to be part of the Langley School District. The fact that you took the time to translate things into different languages to make sure that you reached as many families as possible. I just think, I don't know if you understand that that's not happening in all the other districts. Like this is, you guys have really taken an extra step to do this. And it just, my heart is full hearing this and hearing the feedback from the families and that all the families are so happy with the extra steps that you've taken and shown that their kids really are where our everyday is. So thank you for all of your work on that.
Thank you very much. I just want to add that it was a team effort, but I really just want to thank Joe Abshire, our communications manager, who had a big role in creating the documents and helping with all of those small things that are actually huge for our families.
That's awesome. Thank you, Joe.
Oh, there it goes. Look at that. I want to thank you too. I know it was a huge process and just the reporting back and giving us the steps as it went was so helpful for us because, you know, we hear a lot in the community. And so it's nice to know that there was so much thought and so much work put into this. So thank you for that. Just had a couple quick questions. When will families that filled in the feedback and that requested like number 1 to stay at their school, even though their boundary has shifted, when will they find out?
We're looking to let families know as soon as possible in the spring, but we need to go through a regular kindergarten registration process so that we can see how many families are new to the community, and we want to make sure that everybody finds a spot. So there's no exact date at the moment, but we're going to do that as soon as possible.
Can I just have a follow-up? I noticed when you, in the package where it had people's feedback and what they selected, that obviously Nickel-Mackle was the most impacted, like had the biggest numbers. And so it looked like 94 of the families had chosen number 1, which was remain at my school. Is there any prediction on, out of those families, what numbers we might think will have the opportunity to stay?
Every single one of those families, every single piece of feedback, identify what we're going to be able to accomplish with those families. Again, we want each individual family to have the best experience possible. So the exact percentage, no, but we're going to make sure that we do everything we can to listen and to provide a good experience, either for the transition or for the remaining at school for next year.
Yeah, follow-up to the follow-up. I just really want to say to the families out there that I know that we have to make these decisions sometimes, and it just seems like we're looking at, you know, this number and this as if it's, you know, cogs in a wheel or units. And when you read the feedback that came through, it was just so heartfelt, and there's just no way you could read that without just it pulling at you and you just feeling so emotional with people, you know, really giving their reasons why their child needs to stay. And so I just want all the community out there and the families to know that if this wasn't absolutely necessary, we would never consider it. And that I just really want to thank them for being so honest in their feedback, and it really is considered. So thank you all.
Trustee Ward.
Thank you. These are already made, so I don't really have a question, but for some reason, C words were on my mind. I was just thinking of how comprehensive this has been. And it's community engaged. Like, I'm very proud to be part of this district and just our governance role, because collaborative, comprehensive, considerate, compassionate, with the community at its center. So thank you.
Trustee Fox.
Thank you. A lot of C's there on Trustee Ward. It's great. But I agree with them all. And thank you to my colleagues for their support. And I think it's important that we do as much communication with families, and we keep that family-centric approach to each of these, because boundary changes are, in this case, a necessity. But keeping the child at the center of the focal point and the family at the center and the focal point, I think, is important. The one thing I wanted to point out, and if I'm not mistaken, Chair Ashdown, you actually shared this process with the City of Langley at the liaison committee, so that the City of Langley officials who are at the center of this as well, because they will probably hear about it, at least understand the process and understand the background and the necessity and how the process unfolded. So keeping bodies like that informed and up to date is really important as well, because they're part of the governance that we talk about. So thank you for your work, your staff's work, and I appreciate the fact that we're moving ahead in a difficult situation. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to finish up, I too want to just reiterate what other trustees have already mentioned, that the process has been just pretty incredible to watch, and the fact that we don't have 50 parents in the audience this evening, and we haven't been inundated with emails, just shows you how well and thoughtful the process has been. And that actually is very, very meaningful. In the past, when boundary changes have happened, or when there's changes often at these board meetings, there is a lot of parents, and it really does reflect on that process and how great of a job you've done, and you and your team, because I understand it's definitely been a group effort. And so just thank you so much for that. And as a city trustee, or a trustee elected in the city. I represent, of course, now the whole district as chair and a trustee, but I just want to say that I actually received feedback in my inbox, as I believe trustee Ward and I as city trustees received one email from a parent and then one email from a counselor. So again, it just shows you what a great process it's been. And of course, it's such, as trustee Wilson mentioned, it's such a difficult process to go through, and it's not because we want to do this, it's out of necessity. And unfortunately, we can't get new schools until all of them are full, and it's necessary to move kids around so they have space to learn. So anyways, again, thank you so much.
I just want to reiterate too that there have been many conversations occurring with families, and most of those have been occurring with the administration at all of these feeder schools. And so I thank them, and I'll continue to thank them because they've done exactly what you're speaking of.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, seeing no more hands for discussion on this topic, can I please have a mover that the Langley Board of Education approves the catchment boundaries for the Langley Secondary Family of Schools, elementary schools, be adjusted effective September 2024 as presented. Moved by trustee Ward, seconded by trustee Fox. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving along to 6.2, still under superintendent's report. So I will pass this back over to you, Superintendent Gill.
Yeah, speaking of hard work and conversations with community, that theme continues with the next presentation from Assistant Superintendent Mowino, who is tackling the work started by Deputy Superintendent Bradford many years ago. There were some motions that remained from the consultation process, and Assistant Superintendent Mowino has spent some time in communities gathering information and bringing back a report for trustees this evening.
Thank you, Superintendent Gill. Good evening, trustees. As Superintendent Gill stated, a little bit of context regarding the topic, educational programming in the Aldergrove and DW Poppy regions. This goes back to the consultation done by the board and Deputy Superintendent Bradford back in September to November of 2019, when he consulted with the Aldergrove and with the DW Poppy regions. In December 2019, the board passed 5 motions. In April 2022 to January 2023, I had the opportunity to go back to each of the communities to speak to the PACs in the DW Poppy region, as well as the PAC at Coghlan and Kwantlen First Nation as well. In terms of motions 1 and 2 of those 5 motions, those were dealt with previously relating to Kwantlen and specifically middle school programming in Aldergrove and at Betty Gilbert. This evening, I'm going to be focusing on the last 3 motions, motions 3, 4, and 5. Starting with motion 3, that the Board of Education refer this motion to the Finance and Facilities Committee for work plan consideration and to be brought back to a future board meeting. That district staff investigate the possibility of changing the Fort Langley Elementary catchment from the DW Poppy catchment to the Walnut Grove catchment, or allowing flexibility and choices between DW Poppy and WGSS without catchment changes, and report back to the board for consideration of next steps at a future board meeting. In terms of that particular question, meeting with the Fort Langley PAC 3 times, again between April of 2022 and April 2023. During that time, I heard loud and clear 3 concerns raised by parents. The first, that there are some parents that feel strongly that Walnut Grove is their community. And I think that very much goes to an historical piece, as many years ago, Fort Langley used to be a Walnut Grove catchment. Obviously, the last 15 or so plus years, Fort Langley Elementary has actually been a DW Poppy catchment school. The second concern, that community busing exists from Fort Langley to Walnut Grove, but not from Fort Langley to DW Poppy. And finally, the third concern, while there is an existing cross-boundary application process, AP 305, that cross-boundary students may not apply to Walnut Grove Secondary because of the perception that Walnut Grove is full. Again, they can apply, but many choose not to, simply because of the perception that Walnut Grove is full. And so with those concerns, did some research and brought back some data to the parents, as I shared with you in your board package. 4 conclusions from that data. The first, the data indicates that the majority of grade 7 Fort Langley students actually transitioned to DW Poppy, and a very small number of Fort Langley students apply cross-boundary to attend Walnut Grove. In fact, in June 2021, in checking with Walnut Grove, there were actually 3 cross-boundary applications from Fort Langley. In June of 2022, there were 0 applications to Walnut Grove. The second conclusion, again, based on the data, the second destination of choice for Fort Langley students is actually Langley Fine Arts, not Walnut Grove Secondary. Again, in terms of the data and the research, as of September 2022, there were fewer than 30 Fort Langley or students who had ever attended Fort Langley Elementary at Walnut Grove. However, at Langley Fine Arts, there were over 150 students who had at one point attended Fort Langley that were now at Langley Fine Arts. There were another 50 students in grades K to 7 who are currently at Fort Langley who are also looking to go to Langley Fine Arts. The third conclusion, regardless of where Fort Langley Elementary students choose to go, the students from Fort Langley who apply to either Walnut Grove or Fine Arts using the district's existing cross-boundary procedures in AP 305 are generally able to achieve their goal of attending Walnut Grove or Langley Fine Arts. And I think the numbers very much bear that out. If a student or a family wishes to go to a different school anywhere in the district, the cross-boundary process certainly seems to work. And in this case, again, we have almost 200 families who it did work for, just in terms of these 2 schools. While there are no guarantees as to how many students will be able to be accepted into Walnut Grove or Fine Arts in any particular year, the existing cross-boundary process, which is consistent and works for all schools in the district, also again seems to work for students at Fort Langley Elementary. So conclusions in terms of then next steps. At this point, based on that data, based on that research, the recommendation is that there are no changes to the existing administrative procedure regarding the cross-boundary process in the district, and that there need be no unique exceptions for Fort Langley Elementary students that are required. Moving to motion number 4. This motion is entitled Coghlan Elementary. However, the motion itself states that the K-5 and K-7 fundamental program be reviewed to align with the district's middle school model and report back to the board for consideration. Even though it does mention all 3 schools in terms of the fundamental program in the district, the other 2 schools, Langley Fundamental Elementary as well as the middle secondary, those are already aligned as K-5 and then as grades 6 to 12. So the only school that really isn't in alignment is Coghlan, and thus this became known as, I guess, the Coghlan motion, at least in terms of this slide. In terms of consultation, certainly the focus was on Coghlan, and so Coghlan was visited 3 times, but also because it does mention all fundamental schools, I also took the time to go and meet the PACs at Fundamental Middle, Secondary, and Langley Fundamental Elementary. The final visit was only to Coghlan to share some of the ideas in terms of where this recommendation was going, again, based on the data and based on the fact that Coghlan is the school that would be most impacted by any recommendations. In terms of research and data, a couple of key details really stood out that I think helped explain certain behaviors. So first, you'll notice in the first 2 bullet points that almost 2/3 of students at Coghlan live in Aldergrove. They come from the Aldergrove catchment. In terms of June 2022 and June 2023, you'll notice that the vast majority of students at grade 7 chose to apply cross-boundary to DW Poppy, not to Langley Fundamental Middle Secondary School. In fact, in June 2023, of those 3 students that didn't go to Coghlan, only 1 went to Langley Fundamental. 1 went back to Betty Gilbert, and the other, I believe, went to the Brookswood catchment. And so again, in terms of what Coghlan parents reported, and again, very much in line with what the data above showed us, that most Coghlan families, they come from Aldergrove and aren't really interested or able to attend Langley Fundamental Middle Secondary, which is located just near Brookswood Secondary School. At the same time, most Coghlan families have limited community connections to Langley Fundamental and are more connected to the DW Poppy community. Again, that came directly from the parents, and the data above very much, I think, supports that. In terms of conclusions, 3 conclusions that the data, I believe, pointed to. First, geography prevents most Coghlan parents from continuing with the fundamental program at LFMSS. We also know, again, very clearly, almost 100% of Coghlan grade 7 parents feel more connected to DW Poppy, apply their cross boundary, and actually end up attending there. And in the past several years, we know that all Coghlan grade 7 students who have applied to DW Poppy as cross boundary students actually have been accepted at DW Poppy. And so conclusions in terms of next steps. Again, with the above data and conclusions in mind, including that almost all students are able to attend their choice of school after grade 7, whether LFMSS or DW Poppy, the recommendation is that no changes again are required to the current K-7 structure of Coghlan Fundamental Elementary. Motion 5, middle school programming in the DW Poppy region. The motion in 2 parts, that the Board of Education removes option 3, DW Poppy becomes a standalone middle school, and Aldergrove Secondary would become the feeder secondary school from the table. Again, that was from 2019, December 2019. And that district staff utilized the feedback gathered during the consultation to work with the DW Poppy Transition Committee to continue to develop options for middle school programming in the DW Poppy region. The consultation, you'll see, was able to attend each of the elementary schools at least twice. Again, went to Kwantlen First Nation, went to DW Poppy Secondary as well, and met with the DW Poppy staff as well, just to let them know that again, based on the consultation, there could be impacts that affected the school. In terms of conclusions, before I go to the conclusions, I do want to emphasize during those consultations, during those conversations with all of those PACs, there were 2 conversations that really emerged. First, obviously, there were some ideas and thoughts when it came to what middle school programming would look like in the DW Poppy region, and very much, I think, it was clear there then that there wasn't going to be a separate middle school in the DW Poppy region. But by the same token, I think there was appreciation for some of the best aspects of middle school programming. The second piece had to do with the fact that folks really wanted to talk about DW Poppy as a school and growing the school and actually having opportunities that would help DW Poppy become more of a magnet school in terms of the Langley School District and beyond in terms of the region around Langley School District. So from those 2 themes that emerged, 2, again, conclusions that were drawn from those conversations. First, that two key steps in terms of moving towards a middle school experience in the DW Poppy region for grade 6s and 7 students already exists actually. Many schools in the Poppy region use explorations and platooning, which again, I'll explain in a few moments. And the idea is then, I think that can be expanded to include all elementary schools in the Poppy region. To explain, explorations is simply the possibility of a grade 6, 7 student being able to access courses that are electives, that are interest-based. Some examples in our other middle schools might include woodwork, might include foods class, might include sewing, textiles, robotics, etc. And what we found was that in some of those Poppy schools, they were actually already doing that, where teachers were bringing their interests to the classroom for those students, and we're actually then doing platooning. And platooning is simply the ability of a student in elementary school not just to be with one teacher, but to actually rotate and perhaps visit a second or third teacher. And in that way, again, have more positive adult influences, which is another cornerstone of the middle school experience in Langley. The second conclusion has to do with growing opportunities. And again, as part of this process, there were a couple of pieces that were happening simultaneously. First, there was a motion regarding the LEAP outdoor education program at Fort Langley Elementary. Again, Fort Langley is part of the DW Poppy family of schools. And as a part of that process, we've actually begun to expand the grades that the LEAP program is offered at Fort Langley, with the idea that in a few years and with growing interest, that program could eventually go to DW Poppy and become, again, a magnet in terms of outdoor education at secondary, just like Fort Langley is already for K to 7. The second piece that again happens simultaneously is that again, grassroots, a teacher at the school who has an extensive background in rugby decided that he would be a part of the solution in terms of bringing more interest to DW Poppy Secondary School. And so actually began the process of beginning a rugby program and actually an academy at DW Poppy. And already it has attracted students from around Langley, and even I know of at least one student from outside the district. That came into fruition September 2023, and I look forward to at some point in the future updating trustees in terms of how that program is going when we do our next academy update. In terms of conclusions, next steps, two recommendations that come from that. First, that the district continues to work with elementary schools in the DW Poppy region to share ideas on middle school programming and work with schools to assist to ensure that all schools are implementing explorations and platooning opportunities, and again, sharing some of the best aspects of middle school programming. The second recommendation is that the district continues to work with Fort Langley Elementary and DW Poppy to grow community interest in the LEAP outdoor education program and in the DW Poppy Rugby Academy. And with that, are there any questions?
Are there questions from trustees? Trustee Fox?
Thank you. Thank you for that update. Obviously, a great deal of it precedes my being on the board, so I appreciate the history and the background and the work you've done in terms of preparing this. So in the conclusions, I think it was the second or third last slide there, and in the last slide on conclusions, you talked about working with elementary schools to expand the use of the platooning and so on. Because the platooning, I assume, will take place at DW Poppy because they have the facilities, if you're talking about woodworking or home economics, cooking, whatever you want. Do we, as a district, supply any funding to support that in terms of like busing or of students, or is there a special fund that we have set aside to allocate for in the feeder schools, I mean, most of which were listed there?
In terms of platooning, I can give the example of Coghlan Elementary. Again, not technically part of the DW Poppy, but a family, but we see that in all intents and purposes, it kind of is, certainly with grade 7s. They actually have 2 6-7 classes, and the two teachers actually switch. They switch classes, and then again, at that point, each brings their own interests. So they don't have access to the full woodworking shops, that to your question, but they do experience some aspects of it based on what they have. What they do actually, though, is they do bring some of the secondary experience to elementary. And the example I can think of that perhaps best illustrates that is, are the two band teachers at DW Poppy, that they actually connect with, and they actually go down to the elementary schools and work with grade 6, 7 students in terms of developing their band skills. So that, again, another opportunity, another example of how, again, having some of the experiences that other middle schools have, they have them as well.
Again, just for clarification, there are two items that Assistant Superintendent is talking about. When you talk about platooning, platooning in a middle school model is where the grade 6 teachers follow the grade 7, follow the class to grade 7 and then loop back. So that's your platooning, getting that happen. Then there's the applied skills, which is more of the opportunities around getting different opportunities like woodwork and those kinds of things. Many of those things can be brought into the schools. All schools get supply budgets and can spend their monies in different ways. And so certainly that can be a way that they choose to spend some of their money as well. So yeah, I mean, again, if there's more of an investment, I think we'd have to look at that, but certainly there's opportunities within the schools to be able to provide those opportunities for kids as well.
Vice Chair Dickinson.
I think a little bit of my question was answered just with you there, Superintendent Gill. My question was about, I love the platooning. I'm a huge fan of it. I do it at my school right now. And I was listening to the stuff that you were saying, the middle school experience, so bringing in things like sewing and woodworking, all the components of ADST. And where my mind kind of went was wondering what kind of supplies or tools are provided to some of the elementary schools that feed into Poppy for these grade 6s, 5, 6, 7s to have the opportunity to be able to do some of the more advanced ADST things like the woodworking. So traditionally they would have to go to Poppy to have that, or if they were at HT Stafford, they would have that built in. And I hear that there's some funding that could come out of their general school budget, but I'm wondering if there is something that they have extra at the school that the other schools would already have, just so that they're not going without or having to take money from their general budget to provide woodworking tools or sewing tools or those kind of things that they need for that. So it's just.
And so again, I'm not aware of any, like, for example, woodworking tools, etc. That really depends on the teachers and their interests. And so, correct, they're not going to DW Poppy, that they're not. But again, I get the challenge has been how do they create, because again, a foods room, that kind of thing, obviously beyond the scope of most elementary schools. But there are other ways to provide those opportunities that perhaps are less traditional. Again, one example being robotics and programming. That's one example that I've seen occur actually in the Walnut Grove family, currently doing a similar process with Walnut Grove, because there was a motion from the trustees in 2019 regarding Walnut Grove family as well. And so again, going through a similar process of just exploring what can that look like. And so once I've completed that with the two families combined, I think there are some ideas for me to bring to DLT. Some very concrete examples from both the DW Poppy region and the Walnut Grove families. So again, we'll stay tuned for that presentation in January or February.
Okay, Superintendent Gill had it. Oh, sorry. Did
Just
you?
want to jump in real quick? Yeah, in the past, and I know that we've done this for all of our K to 7 schools, we've created kits for the elementary schools, woodwork kits that were put together by a teacher in one of our schools. When Director Tomlinson was here a few years ago, she started that work so that those things were available. We also have some teachers who have been recognized in North America through the middle school network who have the capacity to help with facilitate some of the professional development that's required for applied skills. And again, as Assistant Superintendent Marino has indicated, that there are different opportunities that are available, but we're still at having the conversation stage with our family of schools around how we can continue to support. We have done it in the past. It's just trying to figure out what that is and what that looks like for each of those schools, so we can provide school-specific supports should that be necessary.
Thank you. Did you have follow-up,
Yes.
or Vice Chair Dickinson?
I think my concern is just knowing that some of the curriculum stuff that is for the ADST curriculum that they have when you're hitting grade 6 and grade 7, it becomes a lot more advanced and you're expected to hit. I'm just was trying to find it here if it's 4 or 5 different things out of the ADST list. So I just want to make sure that the schools are actually being provided with all the tools necessary so that those kids are hitting those curriculum expectations and learning standards that they're supposed to be having and getting the same opportunities that the schools with a middle school has. So I'd be interested to know what there is within each of those schools. I think that would be a nice report to have. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the speakers list is Trustee Wilson.
Oh, there I go. Look at that. Knew it would happen. Wow, this has been such an ongoing thing, and I know that you kind of came in partway through because the motions were at the beginning of my last term, which must be like 5 years ago now. So thank you for doing so much of that work and kind of having to jump into sort of a process that was already ongoing. But yeah, it's, you know, in a 3-part, you sort of gave a 3-part report and I was like, oh, I wish we had questions at each part. So I just have a couple comments for each thing. I was very interested in your Fort Langley meetings and the sort of perception that Walnut Grove is full and to not bother applying. And I'm wondering if from this very public presentation, if we're going to now see maybe a shift in that, because now we've let the secret out that that's a perception and maybe not a reality. So I'm glad that we had this and made that transparent for parents and that there is cross-boundary applications. So that's great in that department. And yeah, with so few applicants, I can't really see why we would undertake a change because yeah, when I ran the first time, that was this huge thing that, you know, there was so many people that were applying and couldn't get in. And it seems that either that shifted or maybe was sort of blown out of proportion. So thanks for actually having the stats on that. I love having actual figures to look at. My second thing, wow, Coghlan, they're probably breathing a sigh of relief because they've been in a bit of turmoil on what's going to happen to them and are they going to become a middle school and follow that model or sort of the shift. So I just, from listening to you, I feel like Coghlan families feel more connected to DW Poppy. Coghlan families are closer in proximity to DW Poppy than the fundamental middle secondary. And almost 100% of Coghlan families apply and attend DW Poppy. So it feels for those reasons that they should not have to apply for cross-boundary, but should be entitled to enroll in DW Poppy because that is their school, obviously. But saying that, I understand that Coghlan is a school of choice and is fundamental and therefore would typically follow the fundamental programming stream. And all that being said, I also believe that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that could cause a whole other myriad of problems. But I do want to say that if that were to change and for whatever reason, those families were not getting accepted cross-boundary, I would really like to see a shift because obviously that is their school and that's where they're connected to. So, and lastly, I just want to talk about the middle school opportunities. And I was really excited to read some of the opportunities coming with different things from Fort Langley and all the different ways it looks like we can maybe have opportunities to increase enrollment and just different opportunities for the kids at DW Poppy. So I'm excited and hope that we see those come to fruition soon or that they're being investigated. And also, yeah, just the last bit about the platooning and the different opportunities we can hopefully see for those elementary schools in that family. So yeah, I would love to hear back soon and see if any, you know, what if anything is working or if we're able to do some of that. So thanks so much for all your work. And I hope that all of those schools feel somewhat relieved that they're not up in the air and wondering what's going to happen to them. Thank you.
In terms of then, there were a few questions I'll do my best to tackle. First off, just I think it would be important to acknowledge that I certainly did some work during this process, but I think the real heavy lifting was done by Deputy Superintendent Bradford in the previous 3 years. And I think it's very important to acknowledge that first. In terms of the cross boundary to Walnut Grove, during the consultation, during the 3 consultations, there were certainly questions about, so is there space, isn't there space? And the answer is students have gotten in to Walnut Grove, but that doesn't guarantee anything. But again, you acknowledge that, so I appreciate that. And then in terms of Coghlan and middle school, again, I appreciate the fact that we certainly hopefully are providing some clarity with what we're doing. And it actually makes me feel good that regardless of the situations that we've brought up to this point, that the AP on cross boundaries, it's working. It was done well and it's working. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other trustees have any questions? No. All right. So could I please have a motion or a mover for the motion that the Board of Education receives the update on educational programming in the ACSS DWP regions for information as presented. Moved by Vice Chair Dickinson, seconded by Trustee Rye. Any discussion on the motion? Nope, no discussion, I see. So a show of hands, please, for all those in favor. Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Moving along to Secretary Treasurer's reports, 7.1, budget process and timeline, 2024-2025 preliminary operating budget.
Thank you, Chair. In your package is a report on the budget development process that the district will be undertaking for the 24-25 school year, as well as information on the amended process for the current school year of 23-24. I'm not going to go through the whole report in detail, but there's information in there on the consultation process that the district undertakes, as well as some budget principles and budget considerations. But did want to spend some time going through the planned timeline for trustees and for the public. We always start the budget discussion as we do the amended budget every year in the early fall, or early in the new year. A lot of that work has been undertaken and is in process already, thanks to Assistant Secretary Shin Chan and his team and the work that they've done over the last couple of months. With the October to December, working with our central departments, and in October, November with our school principals. And now it's with this district leadership team putting all that together to be brought back to the the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting in January, and with updates in February before we bring it for the readings on the public meeting on the 27th, for us to be compliant with filing the amended budget by February 28th. While that is ongoing, we also will be starting the process for the 24-25 school year in the new year. So in January, we will start our meetings with all our stakeholder groups, our consultation with our partners and our Indigenous community. Also, over the last couple of years, we've done a public budget survey that has had great response, thanks to Jo Abshire and the work that she does with Shin Chan to prepare that and get that input from our communities. It's grown the last 2 years. I was looking forward to seeing that grow for a third year. A bit of a challenge there to Jo and Shin. And then we will continue on once we get the funding announcement in March, usually due by March 15th from the ministry, letting us know what the per pupil amounts are and the funding that we have to deal with for the 24-25 school year. It's a requirement for the ministry to do that by March of 15th every year. We will be meeting with our central departments once again, February through April, working on their budgets, as well as in April after we come back from spring break with the budgets for our schools. And the district leadership team will be working with the finance February to May to build and develop that budget with updates coming to the finance facilities meeting throughout those months as well. As we have in the past, we will bring the proposed budget to the May public board meeting for the first and second readings. And before we do the third, we do our budget open house where the public and our partners are welcome to come and ask questions from what they've seen in the first two for the first two readings before we proceed with the third reading bylaw in June public meeting on June 18th for us to be able to meet the June 30th deadline from the ministry to submit our balanced budget. So with that, I will hand it back to the chair and answer any questions.
Thank you. Do any trustees have questions for Secretary Treasurer Isley? No? All right. Seeing no questions, you have trustees, you have a motion in front of you. Do I have a mover, please, that the Board of Education, for the motion that the Board of Education approve the budget process and timeline 2024-2025 preliminary operating budget as presented? Moved by Trustee Ward, seconded by Trustee Fox. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving along to 7.2, PEM's statutory right-of-way. Back to you, Secretary Treasurer Isley.
Thank you, Chair. In your package is information on a right-of-way that has been asked for from BC Hydro, as well as TELUS. They do them in together for a pad-mounted transformer outside of Peter Ewart Middle School. It's a small area. It's only about 70 or 80 square meters. As part of that upgrade, it'll be upgrading the services that we have to Peter Ewart. It'll be basically doubling the electrical capabilities of that building, as well as replacing the equipment inside the school with newer and more up-to-date infrastructure for the electrical part of that building. As the ministry allows under Ministerial Order M193-08, this is not deemed as a disposal by sale. There is no requirement for public consultation on this. There is simply a requirement for the board to pass a bylaw. And the bylaw is in your package tonight and would require all three readings to pass.
Thank you. Are there any questions from trustees? Trustee Fox.
Well, this, and you've alluded to some improvements that will result in terms of capacity and so on, opportunity at Peter Ewart. Does this affect Mountain at all as well, or is this just a standalone unit for that school?
This is the service just for Peter Ewart.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from trustees? No, seeing no more questions. Do I have a mover, please, for the motion that the Board of Education of School District number 35, Langley, Peter Ewart Middle School, pad mount transformer right-of-way bylaw 2023 be given first reading? Mover, moved by Vice Chair Dickinson, seconded by Trustee Wilson. Okay, any discussion on the motion? No discussion. Can I have a show of hands, please? Those in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Moving along to the next motion. Do I have a mover, please, for the motion that the Board of Education of School District number 35, Langley, Peter Ewart Middle School, pad mount transformer right-of-way bylaw 2023 be given second reading? Moved by Trustee Fox, seconded by Trustee Ward. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, raise your hands. Any opposed? Carried unanimously. The next motion, do I have a mover, please, for motion that the Board of Education of School District number 35 Langley approves having all three readings of Peter Ewart Middle School pad mount transformer right-of-way bylaw 2023 at tonight's meeting. Do I have a mover, please? Trustee Wilson, seconded by Vice Chair Dickinson. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, show of hands, please, for all those in favor. Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Now, next motion, last motion, do I have a mover, please, that for the motion that the Board of Education of School District Number 35 Langley, Peter Ewart Middle School Pad Mount Transformer Right-of-Way Bylaw 2023 be given third reading, passed and adopted on the 12th day of December 2023. Do I have a mover, please? Vice Chair Dickinson, seconded by Trustee Fox. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, show of hands, all those in favor. Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we're moving on to 7.3, notice of motion return, policy 20, public interest disclosure. Back to you, Secretary Treasurer Isley.
Thank you, Chair. As trustees will recall, this was same policy was voted and approved at the last public board meeting. This comes from a new act that was put in place in December of 2019, the Public Interest Disclosure Act, which school districts will implement for December 1st of this year. We received guidance over the summer, which was put into the policy and the amendment procedure that the board saw at the September meeting and approved at the November meeting. But on November 29th, we received information from BCPC that the government had passed an amendment to the legislation with one specific change, basically meaning that trustees were not covered under this this act as it had been interpreted previously. So based on this new amendment, BCPC provided updated advice to districts on what should be in policy and the amendment procedure. We received that on the 29th. It is still supposed to be active for December 1st, but we were asked to do it as quickly as possible. So we brought it to this meeting instead of the normal route through the policy committee, just like we did in the September. Staff have updated the policy 20 that's in your package to go out for notice of motion if it's approved, as well as for the interest of or for information of trustees and the public, the amendments that we've made to admin procedure 403 as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions from trustees for Secretary Treasurer Isley? No questions. Okay. All right, trustees. You have a motion in front of you. And do I have a mover, please, for the motion that the Board of Education serves notice of motion to the district's education committee and its education partner groups that it intends to adopt the changes to policy 20, public interest disclosure, at the January 30th, 2024 regular board meeting. Do I have a mover for the motion? Moved by Trustee Ward, seconded by Trustee Rye. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, could I have a show of hands? All those in favor, please. Any opposed? Carried unanimously. All right, moving along to 8, new business. We have Trustee Fox has asked for an addition. We bring a motion forward.
Thank you, Chair Ashdown. Mid last week, I circulated a notice of motion, and tonight I'd like to make it a formal motion. If I could read it out, the whereases, and then the motion itself. Whereas on October 25th, 2023, the Langley School District received a letter from the Township of Langley Clerk, Wendy Bauer, informing the school district that, and I quote, the Township of Langley Council has determined they wish to withdraw the Township of Langley membership on the Joint School District Number 35 Municipal Liaison Committee. And whereas this committee, which was formed in 2011-2012 in response to a need for discussions of mutual interest and concern, and has worked through 11 years of positive discussions and outcomes to the benefit of the community as a whole. And whereas with the recent legislation brought in by the provincial government will require an even greater due diligence on the part of both political entities to liaise, plan, and advocate for school sites and buildings to reflect the increased densities that may be evident with the new housing plans, be it resolved that a letter be written by the board chair to the Township of Langley Council expressing the board's disappointment in the recent decision to withdraw from the committee and request reconsideration of the decision with the outcome to reinstate the TOL SD 35 liaison committee and resume the original schedule of quarterly meetings. I so move.
Thank you, trustee Fox. Do I have a seconder to the motion? Seconded by Vice Chair Dickinson. Any discussion on the motion? Oh, trustee Fox.
Thank you, Chair Ashdown. I happened to be on Township Council when this committee was formed after the 2011-2012 election. Trustee or Chair Ashdown was on as a member of the district trustee at that point in time. And it really, the nexus of it was the conversations I had personally with then board chair Wendy Johnson about the need to have the opportunity as two political entities to sit and discuss problems of mutual interest. And I think that I was able to sit on it for 6 years through to the end of the term in 2018. And we had what I could consider very positive, constructive, outcome-oriented discussions in our meetings with the then trustees and the superintendents, Suzanne Hoffman and Gord Stewart, and then Secretary Treasurers, David Green. And I'm not sure if Brian was involved in any of the ones I was, but the point was we had good discussions. We brought situations, circumstances, issues they brought them from their perspective. We were always focused on outcomes, positive outcomes, and I think it worked extremely well. There is a solid, I believe, terms of reference. We need to revisit that together, and we need to look at those closely if there needs to be some adjustments. But I think that they form a good base for this reinstatement of this particular committee. It was formed to fill a gap. We know that staff meet with staff, but those are technical issues. Those are land-based technical issues. They're not governance issues. We met in a governance context. And I think that was really important. Prior to that, there was no such thing as a liaison committee, and we noted that there was a void. So I allude to the recent legislation on housing. I think now there's a greater need for us to work together in an advocacy role, in a role of understanding and moving forward to the benefit of the community as a whole. We're here primarily for our students and our families. They're here for the community as a whole. And I think we need to bring the two entities together and work constructively. So that's the root of my particular motion this evening.
Thank you, trustee Fox. Vice Chair Dickinson.
Okay, I just wanted to express my support of this motion. One of the things that I campaigned on was looking for ways to build bridges with the township and the city of Langley. In a time where the TOL and therefore the school district is set to experience unprecedented growth, I would like to see the district and township increase partnership opportunities rather than decrease them. I hope that a letter outlining our hopes of reconsideration will be well received by the township. I would love to see the letter focus on the why behind the terms of reference and the original creation. Why was this committee created? And then follow that with asking, how can we make this committee better? And how can we reinvigorate it to help strengthen our partnership between the township and the school board? So I am in favor of this motion tonight.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dickinson. Trustee Wilson.
Great. Thank you for bringing this motion, trustee Fox. I am also in favor of this motion. I feel it's very valuable to have a scheduled means of communication to share our common goals, concerns, ideas with the Township of Langley. And I just know from sitting only once on that committee as the alternate and going over some really important things and ideas just on, there had been a safe routes to school concept that was done between the city of Delta and their school board and going over that and just how important a consultation like that could be, where one entity is looking at both sides and able to come up with ideas that can solve problems in the immediate with just small fixes. So I remember that discussion being really valuable to me and thinking how great of an opportunity it is that we do get to sit and talk about that. Or Trustee Todd on our last board being so excited when the crosswalk at 76th and 200, we referred to that as the Todd crosswalk, because he brought that so many times with how busy the mountain area had become and when the crosswalk was finally going in. And I just know those discussions were really valuable. We often hear from parents with things that they think is a school district decision, but it falls outside of our purview. And those are perfect opportunities to inform the township, because they may have no idea these things are going on. So I do think it's valuable. I wish I understood the reasons for that informed council's decision to withdraw from this committee, because no reasons were given in the letter. And perhaps if council is willing to reconsider and decides to resume its involvement in this committee, the first meeting could simply be a discussion of any changes the township feels would make the committee more effective. So hopefully we can continue this, because I think we all feel it's valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Wilson. Any other trustees have any comments? Okay, I'll finish up then here that I support this motion as well, and I would be happy to work on a letter to reflect the motion. I was on the original board as well, Board of Education, when Trustee Fox was on Langley Township Council, when this committee, as well as the city liaison committee, were created. And was one of the very first things that our new board did, because we felt that there was, we felt it was very important and something that was really missing, that communication piece between both the city and the township with the board. So I believe it was, I'm not sure on the date it was created, but it was very shortly after our board was elected back in 2011. So I believe it was created in 2012. I have for the whole time I've been on the board, I have been a member of the joint city liaison committee, and definitely see its value. We have really good discussion. The meetings aren't a huge commitment for time, even for both the councillors, at least the city ones aren't, for both councillors and trustees as well as staff. Our last meeting was just under an hour, but it was very productive, a good conversation. Things that we've discussed are things such as traffic and parking, city programs for students, such as the annual swim program, which actually also invites township students as well. Snow removal of sidewalks, maintenance of sidewalks, roads to schools, all of those sort of items have come up in discussion at our committee meeting, and I find it really valuable. So I would be happy to try to encourage council to come back on board. Was really sad to see this letter, to be honest, come forward, because I don't fully understand it, and would like to try to encourage in a positive way for council to reconsider and to come back to the table. All right, so any other discussion, or we're good to, all right, so I will, so the motion is already on the table and seconded, correct? It's seconded, yes. So any more discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, could I have show of hands, please? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving along to trustee comments. I will start on the left. This time with Trustee Fox.
To my colleagues on the board for supporting the motion, but I just wanted to say in a week and a half or thereabouts, it'll be Christmas break. I hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas, takes time to re-energize, enjoy family, friends, and the festive season. So thank you and Merry Christmas.
Trustee Ward.
What did I do there? It's aliens. Just thank you for anybody who's tuning in online again. And I want to echo Trustee Fox's comments, just wishing everybody a festive holiday season and a very Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Trustee Roy.
Yeah, I just want to wish everyone happy holidays. Thanks for coming out, and I hope everybody gets a well-deserved break and some time to spend with their loved ones. Thank you for all your guys' hard work, and let's embrace 2024 with a positive attitude and get some things done.
Thank you. Vice Chair Dickinson, I'll move this way. Yeah.
Same. It's the rest of you guys. Enjoy a very well-deserved break. I know we're going right to the bitter end. So we still got another week and a half. Thank you to all of our staff that are doing that. Students and families, staff, I hope you all have a very well-deserved break.
Trustee Wilson.
Great, thank you. Just basically more of the same. I want to thank all of the staff and partner groups and students and families and parents especially. I know this can be a really hard time, and you're going to make it a week and a half. Just count it down. You're almost there. Hang in there. I know a lot of families are struggling a little more this year than normal. So please try to just know that everybody sort of sees you and feels you, and please reach out to any, even your own school. There's often supports that some families might not know about. So please reach out and get help if you need it. And I hope everybody has a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you. And just finishing up, same thing. Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you all have some nice time to rest. I'm looking forward to it. I know it's been a really busy fall, and just it's an honor to work with you all. And so just hope you get a couple of weeks to relax and enjoy the season with family and friends. We're moving along now to a question period. Question period is provided at board meetings. The purpose is to ensure that those present in the audience have an opportunity to obtain clarification concerning business conducted during that meeting. Priority will be given to responding to one question per person before considering further questions from any individual. The following will help the public develop questions for the question period at a board meeting that is keeping with the goal of a respectful and focused meeting. Questions need to be directed at the chair and not to staff, need to be related directly to the topic on the agenda, need to be succinct, focused, and not be a statement, may not be asked that are related to personnel or directed at an individual trustee, may not be asked that are related to contract negotiations, and the questioner shall provide their name so that it can be reflected in the minutes. All of the above are directions provided for in board policy number 7, board operations. The chair may answer, may defer to staff, or indicate a question may not be in keeping with the above guidelines. The board appreciates the public's interest and wants to ensure a professional meeting is conducted with question period, focusing on providing guests with the clarification they seek. Trustees also welcome questions from members of the public apart from question period. Their contact information is available on the school district website. Do we have any questions?
Neil Turner, back again. I just wanted to compliment you on a great presentation. I think that your commitment to communication is something that's often lacking and we make decisions. So really encouraged by your presentation. So thank you for that. Wanted to talk a little bit, again, I live in Willoughby, and Willoughby is still growing as it is going to continue to do. And my comments and questions are more around what you've talked about, and I appreciate Trustee Fox's motion because somewhat related to some of the decisions that are happening up in the Willoughby area, particularly by the township. And I'm wondering about the connection between school board and particularly the liaison committee with some decisions that I noticed in the Williams development plan that's going on up there. So traditionally, the agreement between the school district and the township with development of lands for schools is a 5-acre plot and a 5-acre parks connected to development on there. That's what my understanding is in conversations with people. And in the Williams neighborhood plan that was presented on page 82, it states it is anticipated that approximately 5 acres of land will be required for a new school site, will be required. And in the policies, it says that they're allotting only 4 acres for both the elementary and the middle school up there, and 9 acres for the neighborhood parks. So that's a significant change. And so in light of that, and the portables that are appearing and maxing out spaces. So I live very close to Bullpit, and obviously they're maxing out, and I know the province is putting some new additions there. But I'm more concerned about the communication with the lack now of the liaison committee, whether in the past liaison committee meetings there's been discussion about change to the allotment for school sites.
Sorry, Neil, so what is your question specifically?
Is the on the liaison committee between the school district and the township, was it discussed that there would be a change with the 5 acres going to 4 acre allotment for schools?
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm going to give this over to you, Secretary Treasurer Isley or Superintendent, because I don't actually attend these meetings, so the joint liaison.
I think it's
Or
trustee
sorry,
Neufeld and
great.
trustee Rye.
Yeah,
Both of those.
okay. Trustee Neufeld is not here this evening. Trustee Rye, no, maybe we could follow up.
It hasn't come up. Yeah. So so I think that I love it that you guys have your advocacy website now, and there's a couple of advocacies that are up there. And I'm really hoping to see if the board is opposed to the minimization of the sites, that there would be some communication with the township on that. That's a significant change.
Sorry, Neil, did you have any more questions?
Will you be putting an advocacy communication with the township about the 4 acres from the 5 acres? That would be my question.
That has not, that I know of, come up, the committee.
Yeah.
Clearly there was a motion here tonight for that committee, so that's a difficult one to answer at this moment, so.
The difficulty is that the plan is going through and is getting voted on, and I would like to see the board take a stance on losing property for the school buildings.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing no more questions, could I please have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion by Trustee Fox, seconded by Vice Chair Dickinson. Any discussion? All those in favor, show of hands. Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned at 8:32 p.m.